Hello! Since I picked up these two new Kaja Bento boxes during the Sephora haul, I figured I would go ahead and swatch all four of the bento boxes I have, give you my thoughts about which one's my favorite, and hopefully it can be helpful if you're considering getting one, and if not, hopefully it's just some fun swatches to watch. So if that sounds good to you, go ahead and just keep on watching and subscribe. I'm actually going to go ahead and start with this one since this has the most mattes, and then we'll move into the shimmers. This is called a Lotta Colada. It was on sale on the Sephora US website for $13. I'm not sure if it still is, but just in case, I thought I'd let you know. It's got a matte yellow in it, a kind of mustardy orange leaning yellow, not quite as bright as the packaging would have you believe. The middle shade is a kind of like typical shimmer shade. Some of the Kaja shades can get really sparkly, which you'll see in a little bit, but this one is just a kind of typical shimmer. For me, it's a great highlight color and matches my skin tone really well. Then the last shade is a warm brown. I would say that this is a mid-tone brown, and again, it's got a little bit of yellow inside of that brown color. So here is this trio swatched out all together, and at the end, I'll swatch all of them on my wrist at once. But for now, here is just this trio. Next up, we'll go ahead and do Mauve Bouquet, since this one has one matte. This top shade is a different kind of formula than any of the other Kaja shimmers. It's a little bit more flaky. It feels kind of creamy, but still flaky to the touch in the pan. And you can see it definitely does have a lot of flakiness to it, and as a result, it is very sparkly. This is probably my favorite overall shade. Look at that. Can you see that individual sparkle? Let me try to focus a little bit. Hopefully you can see. It is very pretty. And that flakiness, though it feels flaky to the touch, it goes away very quickly once you've applied it. Unfortunately, the next shade is pretty underwhelming. You can see it's gotten some pretty bad hard pan, and I wish that they would have done just their normal shimmer formula or even the sparkly formula that we're gonna go over in the next two palettes. This one is more like a metallic with sparkle particles in it. Sorry if you can hear my cats playing in the background, by the way. It's kind of a rosy color, but do you see how just kind of dusty it looks? It does have that really pretty sparkle, but the color itself definitely leaves something to be desired. And honestly, out of all of the Kaja shades, even this one, I would say that this is probably the least exciting shimmer that I have. And then lastly, we've got a mauve kind of matte shade. It's really, really pretty, and I think that for just having one matte in a palette, this is a really good matte to have because it can be kind of applied lighter and be a good crease and transition color, but it can be built up in the outer corner as well. All three of these together should be a really beautiful look, but I feel like I just don't reach for this one as much because that middle shade is kind of a dud, in my opinion. The last two bento boxes have the same formula, so we'll just go ahead and do this one first. This is Toasted Caramel. I recently swatched this and the Lotta Colada bento box in my recent video on my Sephora haul, so if it's a repeat for you, I'm sorry. But first up, we've got this really light gold shade. I would definitely say it looks like it's gonna be a champagne, at least I think so, in the pan, but it is very golden once you get it on your eyes. And I feel like this one is the most sparkly out of all three shades in the palette. I topped this one on top of the next shade, which I'll go ahead and swatch for you now, and I feel like it really brought it to life. These other two are still shimmery, but something about that top one, maybe it's just because of the lightness of the base, you can really see that sparkle and all of those individual sparkles really coming through. This middle shade, we've got a nice mid-tone bronze kind of brown shade, and it's got a golden sparkle in it. And then last in this one, we've got a little bit of a deeper, more red-toned bronze. It's the least sparkly out of the three, I would say, and it looks a little bit more straight up metallic versus these two, which have much more prominent sparkle pieces in them, especially that first one. Last up is the Orange Blossom palette. I've had this one the longest, so it may be a little bit older in formula than the others, but it is a real beauty. So first up, we have this kind of pink to gold duochrome, a really pretty sparkly shade, that same kind of sparkly texture that we just saw in the Toasted Caramel palette, but this one is cool because it's got a little bit more duochrome going on in the shades. The second shade that's in here is a really vibrant peach to gold duochrome, and again, that same sparkle level in this shade, just like the first one. Pretty punchy, at least on my eyes and my skin tone. This shade turns way more colorful than I expected. And then lastly, to wrap this one up, we've got a really beautiful bronze shade. And whereas the other two go golden, this one kind of goes more silver. And I really like that contrast between that warmer brown and then the silver sparkle in it. And I would say that all three of these are much more equal in sparkle compared to Salted Caramel. As promised, here are all of the swatches from all four of the bento boxes that I have together. And I swatched them in the order that we swatched them together. So we've got Lotta Colada, Mauve Bouquet, Toasted Caramel, and Orange Blossom. I would say that my favorite is definitely between these bottom two, Toasted Caramel and Orange Blossom. I just really like this ultra sparkly formula from Kaja, and I feel like that exists in honestly an even better formula in this shade, but because this middle shade is such a dud, it kind of makes the palette less good to me overall. I do really like the inclusion of one matte too to kind of sculpt a look out, but that middle shade makes this one a hesitant repurchase for me. I also think that the mattes in this one are really, really nice, and the shimmer is good quality, but it's just a standard kind of shimmer formula, whereas you can see pretty much all of these other shimmers are ultra sparkly and really unique. This you can find in pretty much any palette from the drugstore or high-end. Between these two, I would say that I like this color story a little bit more because I can do a full look with this one, with this all over the lid, this smoking out the outer corner, and then this on the inner corner, and maybe even the brow bone if I want to go a little bit crazy. But I will say I feel like this is the more consistent formula. You can see the sparkle in all three of those shades is very similar, whereas this one definitely is less sparkly than the other two. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for, but I would say my recommendations are the all shimmer bento boxes for sure, and depending on your preference and color story, you may choose one or the other, or some of their other all shimmer ones that I just don't have to show you. I hope that this was helpful for you though, in kind of talking about the formulas from Kaja. If I had to go with just one, I honestly feel like I might go with just Orange Blossom, maybe because it has more sentimental value since I've had it for longer, but I love that I can get three different looks, like one shadow looks, with just this little tiny trio. Although I do wish that one of these was light enough to work on the inner corner for me personally. But I know if you have a deeper skin tone, this might work really well for you. So it's totally up to personal preference. Well, I know today was a pretty short one, but I hope that you enjoyed. If you've tried the Kaja bento boxes, let us know your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear, because everyone's different and you might have different thoughts than I do, and we can help each other out, make sure that we're making the best purchases possible for us. Until I see you next time, I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. Bye!